Hello and welcome to the Untranslatable Podcast. We are here recording episode number 42, Conlang 101, What is it? And we are here today to talk about Conlang, which is shorthand for constructed language. So we will be talking about various, fictional languages used in different movies and novels and things like this. So we're hoping to bring you a very exciting and informative episode today. And I just wanted to let all of our listeners know here at the Untranslatable Podcast, one of our main goals is to spread the love of learning languages and cultures to you in the comfort of your own home, car, wherever you may be listening to us. We really appreciate your support. And without further ado, I'm here with my man with the plan, my buddy Jared. How's it going, Jared?
Toki. Kamapona. Sinapilinseme.
Oh, wow.
That is hello. Welcome. How are you? In Toki Pona. And that's just a little taste. Oh man, you guys are so lucky. Not only will you get to hear us fuck up real languages, you'll soon get to hear us ruin made up languages as well. This is the best of both worlds today. For more of these fun shenanigans, please follow us on Twitter, Untranslatable1, Instagram, Untranslatable Podcast. Chad wants me to show off my new, what should I call it? Untranslatable Podcast recording dungeon, recording lair. I told Chad, I will not let Echo beat me. I cleaned out a closet. I went to IKEA. I got a one of those rugs that has the car, like the Kid City little map on it, $9. I got a table for $50, and I even got a picture. And this is now the official Untranslatable Podcast recording studio from Philadelphia. And if you'd like to give me some tips on improving, or if you'd like to send some trinkets to the Untranslatable Podcast Recording Studio A from Philadelphia, please do. But first, email me so I can vet it. So email us at the untranslatablepodcast@gmail.com. Tell us how cool my studio looks, how jealous you are of my rug. And tell us some untranslatables. Tell us if you know anything about conlangs. One thing I did learn about conlangs is it's a rabbit hole.
Oh,
at
sure.
At about 3 a.m. Chat's time yesterday, I texted him saying, "Hey, Google conlang and Google alien conlang."
And Reddit is just as big of a rabbit hole as anything else.
And
my God.
I was like, this is probably going to be an interesting thing for him to wake up to tomorrow morning or today, I guess.
Right. And I got to be honest with you, Jared, I have never heard the term conlang before.
Me neither.
Knew what conlang, I knew what, it was, I guess, but I had never heard the appropriate term.
Right. Like you've heard of examples. Like you knew what Klingon is, for example.
Oh, yeah.
But you didn't know that people called that a conlang.
Right, but I have to admit I'm not a big Star Trek fan, and I did not really do any research on Klingon for this episode, to be completely honest.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. There's plenty to talk about. Anyone that's a Klingon fan I don't even know how to say it.
I think it's Klingon.
Klingon already knows everything about it if you're deep into that world. Otherwise, just Google it. We're going deep, baby.
That's true.
Talking alien conlang. No, I don't know how deep we're going into that, but did I get out all of our... Oh, please rate, review us. 5 stars on Stitcher, iTunes. Spread the love. Even do it in a different language if you want. Make it fun. Do it in whatever language you want. It doesn't have to be in English.
We would also love to hear in your reviews which topics you would like for us to cover. And if you have any good untranslatables, we would be happy to feature them on our next episode.
Or what's your favorite segment? That's also... I'm curious about that, too.
Oh, yeah, that's very true.
Or what's your astrological sign?
Exactly. Or what's your spirit animal? We could go on and on. That's for sure. Well, Jared, you mentioned you were at IKEA.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've only been to IKEA 2 or 3 times, And actually, two of the times were in Europe. One time was in the United States. And it's really quite an interesting place to go.
I have a love-hate relationship with IKEA. One,
And why is that?
there's no denying that the stuff is cheap. So there's that. So although that's the thing. I do have stuff that has been yeah, that's kind of messed up after a couple of years, but what do you expect? And then I've had stuff that I've had for years that still go strong. Mostly dressers tend to go strong, but they just sit there, I guess. And then the thing I don't like about IKEA is they force you to walk around the entire place.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no shortcuts. You have to walk through everything. You have to look at everything. I find myself looking at refrigerators and dishwashers, just like, what am I doing? It's like, wow, this is a very nice
deal.
It's a very nice bedroom set.
That's how they get you.
I've been thinking I need a canopy for my bed. Why don't I have a canopy on my bed? Although then I find things like this rug that reminds me of preschool and kindergarten, and I'm like, hell yes, this is worth every $9. Yeah, and it fits perfectly in this room. And I'd probably say, I guess I don't know I'm trying to think of the 3 feet across, 1 feet, okay. 1 feet wide, maybe 1 foot wide. Mm-hmm. So it's a not that big, but it fits perfectly in this room.
And you cannot beat the style of the preschool roadmap carpet for sure.
No,
and for $9, that's a steal for any carpet.
When I was on the road again, I was talking about in Ann Arbor. I was talking about getting all nostalgic. You should have seen the smile on my face walking through IKEA holding this thing. I actually wanted someone to walk up to me and be like, "Where'd you get that?"
Where did you find it? The children's section? No. I mean, I feel like that's the logical place, right?
There was a section that was specifically for rugs.
Okay.
So there were also adult rugs in this section. But like I was just looking at rugs because this is it's a tile floor. But I was like, I also want something on the floor if I'm going to make this the ultimate studio. You also got to damp the floor a little bit.
That's fair.
And I was like, so I need a rug in here. And I was like, oh hell yes. And like there were some nice red ones, some nice conservative, like the nice kind of ones that have just those kind of abstract generic rug designs. Well, this is a very nice generic rug design. Next thing I almost wanted to go to Walmart and buy some like toy cars.
That would be pretty fitting.
And like at least glue them to like park. There's a parking spot right next to my. But then I just like there's no space in here for anything, let alone me to play toy cars in here.
Plus, then it'll be like you're stepping on Legos if you accidentally step on that toy car.
And this is just this whole process is just me slipping on gator piss. It's just gonna be a whole rabbit hole to where this place is just gonna be filled with like junk.
Pimp my untranslatable recording studio.
You know what it'll kind of be like? It'll be like that song of the pod we had by Bink Beats, where there's just sound and noises everywhere. Forget my drops. There's just gonna be little machines and like coo. And like a ting ting. I have a tambourine behind me.
That'd be pretty sweet.
Someone's gonna come over and like accidentally look, and they're like, "No, don't go in there." They're like, "Jared, what are you doing here?" Nothing. Get out of there.
It's my secret life. It's like your bat cave.
Oh, it is. It is.
The untranslatable cave.
And another thing I like about down here, last thing I'll say about this studio, because we actually do talk about things other than the room I sit in, is that it's not right off the main road, so you're not going to hear fire trucks constantly going by and stuff like that.
I'm a little disappointed. I looked forward to hearing those.
What I'll do is I'll just stand outside until a fire truck goes by and record it. I'll hold my microphone outside, and then I'll get a drop. And then I'll have some sort of flute that I can replicate it.
There you go. Dude, I saw a hilarious video today. It was on Instagram, and it was this golden retriever, and it heard an ambulance, and it mimicked the sound of the ambulance. And it even did like a little woo woo. It was awesome.
How good was the actual siren?
Well, here, hold up. I can find it real quick and hold it up to the mic and play it for you.
By the way, all this technology we have, and you're still holding your phone up to...
Right.
Doesn't your fancy mixer have a button where you can do it like record from USB?
All right, here it is.
Is that the dog?
No.
Oh.
So this is the siren. So, so that's the
I mean,
dog
okay,
doing that
I can tell the
ambulance.
difference.
I mean, obviously, but it was still
But
pretty cool.
it is hilarious, and I do like the wow wow. That almost sounds like a European, like a European
Oh my God, you're
siren
so
or
right.
something like that.
You're so right. That's true. That is true.
So, Chad, did you spend? I've been thinking about you a lot. I always think about you, and I think about how much time you spend out of Komutov. Was this a weekend spent in Komutov?
Yeah, I spent the whole weekend here in Komutov.
When you spend a weekend in Komutov, what does that usually consist of for you?
Yesterday
Netflix.
Yes, I've been watching a lot of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I had a student. My students always ask me what do I like to watch, and I tell them usually a lot of like comedy stuff, whether it's stand-up or funny series like The Office or The Simpsons. And so one of my students in class was like, "Have you seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine?" And I'm like, "No, what is that?" And he's like, Andy Samberg, right? The guy from SNL, and he was on. He was in that like kind of funny
Lonely Island.
Thank you, Lonely Island. You knew what I was talking about. And so I've been watching a lot of that. I've been playing guitar quite a bit. Actually, I just learned how to play "It Runs Through Me" by Tom Misch, which was one of our songs.
Oh, nice! Wow, that took you no time.
Yep. And I gotta thank you, Jared, because I've been listening to Tom Misch. I keep saying Misch. I don't know why.
Yeah, he's British. I think he just say it
right.
like a
normal person. Right. But yeah, so I've been listening to Tom Misch quite a bit lately, and he is just so fantastic. For all of our listeners out there, check out our YouTube channel. We have all of our songs of the pod, and we will be having some different songs in specific languages coming out to you as well. So
hell yeah,
take a look for that.
For sure.
But yeah, so that's what I was doing. Yesterday, I actually had a friend of mine come over and watch some of the. We're going to be breaking the fourth wall here, but watching some of the Michigan State Ohio State football game, and it was just a mess.
Oh, I have no idea what happened.
So I'll keep it short and sweet. Basically, MSU's defense held it down for the most part, but OSU's punter, he kicked within the 5-yard line, even the 1-yard line, like 3 or 4 times, pinned MSU in their own end zone, and we took one intentional safety, which I do not understand why you would do that. But
I've never even heard of that.
No, I'm pretty sure it's unheard of in football in general. And so, it was like 6-7. We had a touchdown that was called off that would have brought us 10-7. Obviously, there was a penalty, so they took back that touchdown. And then in the fourth quarter, everything just came unglued. So mistakes all over the place. But yeah, and
for
so
Michigan
I was
State.
watching the football game for Michigan State. Yeah.
So they lost. That's what you're getting at.
Yeah.
What was the final score?
It was 26-6. I think it was bad.
Oh wow! And all scored in the finals, the second half.
No. It was. I think it was 7-6 by the end of the first half, I believe.
Okay.
So it was close until the fourth quarter, and then things came unglued. We had a fumble in very close to our end zone, which cost us, and they scored a touchdown off of that. And then, honestly, after they made those couple of mistakes, I was kind of done with it, and then I just was a little stressed. So obviously, what do you do when you're stressed? Grab my guitar.
Okay, I thought you were gonna say drink.
No, I haven't. I've been trying to cut back on the drinking just because it's so easy to just drink lots of beers here because they're so tasty. You know what I mean?
Tea? Are you drinking tea?
Mm-hmm.
Tea's a great way to cut back.
In my Komutov mug.
I got this bag. I got this cup right here when I was
on the road again.
Oh, nice.
So, how am I gonna do this? I guess what I was gonna tell you is that they gave it to me for free.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what the more realistic thing is that I borrowed it for free. I don't know what came over me, but it was, and so it's essentially just like it's pretty like thin.
Seems pretty sturdy.
It's actually not. It's very thin. It's plastic, and it's good plastic. I wouldn't put it in the dishwasher. That's for sure. But it is washable, and I like to drink tea out of it because there's a lid on it, so it stays. What are we talking about, by the way?
Tea.
Oh right, yeah. Cutting back on the tea's a great way to do it. Like during my sober October, I drank a lot of tea.
And as I mentioned in our previous episode, my throat's been a little scratchy, so tea is definitely a good remedy for that. That's for sure.
Yes.
But yeah, so this weekend though, it's been, to be honest, a lot of relaxing, some sleeping in, and playing a lot of music, listening to a lot of music. Tom Misch, and also I've been listening to John Mayer's album. It's his most recent one, and at first I only liked one or two songs on it. Now to the point where I've heard it so many times I listen to it, from like first song to the last song.
That's a sign of a good album. At first you're like, it's all right, and then you're like, oh, I realized I can't put this thing down.
Yep.
I like that.
What have you been up to? You've just been chilling in Philly?
Yeah, I have nothing to add. I think we should get to shoutouts because
let's do it.
I have more than enough to talk about as far as Conlang goes.
Sweet.
This
Great.
turned into quite the rabbit hole.
It did, as a lot of our talk of the top of the show talks do. So I only have
no, I meant my Conlang research turned into quite the rabbit hole.
Oh, your Conlang. I see. Oh, rabbit hole. I thought you said ramble. Sorry.
Oh,
gotcha.
No.
Gotcha. So my first shout out, and I don't know if you heard about this at all in the United States. I didn't hear about this until I read this news story. There was actually, unfortunately, a terrorist attack in Melbourne, I believe yesterday.
Australia?
Or even this morning. Yeah.
It's Melbourne, but okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no one says Melbourne.
Well, in Melbourne, Australia, there was...
At first I thought you were going to say like Melbourne, Tennessee or something like that.
Oh, no. So
Yeah,
what
Melbourne.
happened is, and once again, I'm not going to name the attacker because I don't think they're
Yeah,
worth...
what was the style of...
So this guy drove a truck and pulled it over on the side of the street, lit it on fire, then had a knife and tried to stab a couple people. Unfortunately,
Jesus
one
Christ.
person died.
How do you light a truck on fire that quickly?
I'm assuming he had some type of gasoline or something
Like
in the
connected
truck
to the gas tank or something like that? Like a
yeah,
movie?
or
Does that work?
as well. I don't know. I've never lit a truck. I've
never
never lit
tried?
any vehicles on fire. So yeah. But anyways, so this guy first lit the truck on fire, and then people called the police, and the attacker had a knife and was trying to stab police officers and stabbed a couple innocent people. And what's pretty crazy, though, is this gentleman, and this is who my shout-out is for, Mr. Michael Rogers, who people are calling Trolley Man. Do you know what Australian English, what trolley means?
Is that like a subway?
No, it's a shopping cart.
Oh, right. I think we've talked about that before.
Yeah, I didn't even know. When I read Trolley Man, I thought that it was an attack on like a tram or something.
When I was a kid, I had a babysitter that was British. And apparently, according to my parents, I don't remember this, I used to call shopping carts trolleys as well. I don't remember, but my mom brings it up more than enough for me to believe her.
Right. Brilliant. But yeah, so anyways, so this gentleman, dubbed Trolley Man, Michael Rogers, actually helped quite a bit. He first hit the terrorist with the shopping cart or the trolley. Believe it or not, didn't knock him over, which is kind of an impressive feat. But then he also put the trolley in between the terrorist and the police officers, and the police officers then shot him in the chest, and I believe the terrorist died in the hospital.
Just imagine
what's
just
crazy,
watching that happen and this like being in that store.
Well, people have videos on their phones and posting it to social media.
Of course, yeah. I mean, you can't blame them, I guess.
Honestly, after I read this, I was like, I was a little scared, and I was like, how do you even defend a knife attack? So I went on YouTube and was watching a bunch of videos on how to defend a knife attack.
I'll tell you this: it's easier to defend a knife attack than it is a gun attack.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. That is for sure. But yeah, so shout out to you, Michael Rogers. And believe it or not, he's actually homeless, and he has been praised online, and there has been a GoFundMe or some type of funding where they have raised $92,000 for him So hopefully he's now off the streets.
I always have mixed feelings about those. We found like a good one that we save.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
That happened. Remember the like that radio host guy that had like the beautiful voice, and they like kind of did the same thing to him. And I think he was back in the why I always have to do this. I'm here in my new recording studio A, and I'm getting negative.
That's all right.
No, but shout out to him for sure.
Absolutely.
I mean, people always think that they'd have what it takes to jump in a moment like that, but you never know until you're there.
Right. And what Mr. Rogers said is he said that for him it was just instinct, which I truly believe. I mean,
for sure.
I feel like when something like that happens, you don't think about it.
People often say that when someone is in some sort of, like, it's either a fight or flight situation, but really even more than fight or flight, what I hear that it tends to be is either like fight or freeze. It tends to be one of the two responses people tend to have.
Right.
And freezing is just as valid and or stupid and or smart as the fighting could be. Like, it's not like one's better than the other per se.
Right. Yeah. So shout out to him. My second shout out, and I hope by the time this episode drops, things have changed, but my shout out goes to all of the people in California who have had to have been evacuated from the fires. I hope everyone is safe, and they'll be able to get everything squared away once the fires stop. It's really a shame how many people have. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but quite a few people have been, a lot of people have been evacuated from California. And I hope everybody will be all right.
Do you happen to know if they determined if it was natural or
I have no idea.
Man-made? Okay. I mean, it most likely could be natural though. That's not an uncommon occurrence, but that is very unfortunate. And yeah, shout out to you guys.
So stay strong, California.
Yes.
Chad and Jared at the Untranslatable Podcast. We're rooting for all of you and hope you can all land on your feet afterwards. These kind of natural disasters are never easy for anybody, and we really do send you, I'm not going to say thoughts and prayers, but we will send you good vibes, and we really hope that everything will be all right. So, but now moving on, as usual, one of our newest, you're good, one of our newest segments to our podcast. We've been doing it now for, I think, this will be our 5th episode.
I think it's 6 because I have 5 beers and you did one while I was on the road again.
So it is 6. That's right. So our 6th beer review of the pod, and we're going to continue
final
this.
in the Tonewood series as well.
Well, good. I have a good Czech beer for our next episode.
Great. We'll look forward to that, but for now, it's about me. No, it's actually about Tonewood for now.
That's right.
So my final beer is what I, in my head, assume to be maybe their most, I'm not going to say popular, but one of the ones that they've invested the most in. Because if you see, this is the only one that I've had that has a normal, like a can that has what you would say a traditional style logo on it. So it's not a sticker. It's more of the standard can that you would find in any sort of can. And so it makes me seem that this is the one that they've invested the most in, or it's the one that they sell the most of, or whatever, or their whatever it is. But hold on one second, sorry.
I kind of like the cans with the more sticker-ish.
Me too.
It just looks a little bit more urban, a little more
like craft brewy. But I bet you there's probably something to actually having it in a legitimate can like this, as far as sales go, especially if you're trying to mainstreamify your beer company, which I assume these people are. They're trying to make money. Anyway, what this beer is, which once again, Tonewood Brewing Company, Oakland or Line, I don't know how to say it. I haven't looked it up in all these weeks. New Jersey, which is about 15 minutes from Philadelphia, South Jersey. This is the Tonewood Fuego.
Arriba!
Fuego is, Chad, what does fuego mean?
Espanol for fire.
And how would you explain this can?
Looks hot.
Yes, so there are flames. The logo are flames. Is flames? I don't know how that would go. Is or are flames? Are flames. And within the flames...
No, the logo. Sorry, the logo is...
The logo is flames. That's funny because sometimes I say, that's flame emojis if I want to say something's cool. Anyway.
Right.
And within the flames, it says Fuego, and then under that, I think it says dank. Dank.
Say dank or dark?
I'm going to say dank.
Can you point it? Camera.
Hold on. Right there, you see it?
Nope. Hold up. Back it up.
Oh, hold on, I gotta find. Right there. You see what I'm talking about, though, right? In the red.
I see. In the red. Oh, that does say dank for sure.
What's the other word though? But you're also looking at it backwards, so it's even harder for you.
Yeah, it's dank. It starts with a J.
Anyway, enough. Let me see if there's any. Oh yeah. Let me explain it to you how Tonewood explained it. Fuego. It is a 6.2 alcohol by volume. It's a American IPA, which is India Pale Ale. I've been saying Indian Pale Ale my entire life, like a freaking fool. And it is, according to Tonewood, cloudy IPA, our golden, hazy IPA with a soft and sweet bread and biscuit malt backbone and upfront aromas of zesty grapefruits, lemons, peaches, and mangoes, rounded out by an earthy and floral drag of resiny pine sap.
That is very specific.
Everybody knows what pine sap tastes like, so so you already kind of know what this beer tastes like. Let me make it a full masterpiece theater. This is the beginning of my crazy person studio right here.
There we go.
I should record that and make it a drop for whatever reason. Anyway, let's see. It does smell very.
Have you tried this one before?
I have, but it's been a while. It has been a while since I've had it. At least 2 weeks since I've had this. It is very aromatic. It does smell like it would be fruity for sure.
Thoughts?
This is a very good one. This is a perfect in between the Freshies, which was my first one, and the Improv, which was the double IPA. It has similar taste to the Improv, but it's clearly not as strong. There's clearly not as much alcohol in there, which is the case. This is 6.2. I believe the Improv was 8%, and you can tell that difference. But this is very smooth. Ooh, it's so smooth. And let me see if I can taste some of those flavors they're talking about.
Now, I understand with an India Pale Ale, they usually are kind of hoppy, right? Or
yes.
A little bitter. Would you say this is hoppy or bitter at all?
Not bitter, but it is hoppy.
Okay.
I would say I definitely taste the grapefruit and lemons. The mangoes, too. I don't know what an earthy floral drag, and I don't know what pine sap tastes like. But
I gotta up that palate, Jared.
But I get where they're coming from. I'm not mad at it though. I'm not gonna complain about it. I'm like, all right, I don't really, I'm not that sophisticated in my palate, but I get it. And I'm gonna have to say,
is that your favorite?
No. But now that we've done the entire Tonewood series, let me first pull up all of them just so I can remember and make sure I don't do this wrong.
Let's see how good my memory is. First, you had the Freshies. Then the Dreadnought.
Yes.
Then the Improv, right?
Yes.
Or am I missing one?
No, you're right. No, that's good.
And then we had.
Then you.
Our last episode you had. Oh shoot! Which one did you have last episode?
Last episode was a porter.
That's right.
What was it called? It had a fist on
Revolution.
There you
Revolution.
go.
Yeah. The Revolution Porter.
And then this is the Tonewood Fuego. On Fuego. By the way, I could. It's so funny now that I know what Fuego is. I mean, I had learned it not recently, but I used to always hear it as a kid and really have no idea what it meant. But knew that it meant on fire, but not even recognize that fuego meant fire in Spanish.
Right.
Just because it was so part of our normal lexicon to say on fuego. So I'm gonna say, what would you think based off of? Let's see how good my reviews were. I want to see if you could guess what you think my order was, and I'll give you a ham or I'll give you either or one of those.
Okay. Good idea. So. You want me to guess what your favorite one was?
Starting with the worst. Let's start from the bottom.
With the worst. Well, that's
or least favorite.
One.
Worst is not fair because I did like them all.
They were all good. Okay, least favorite. Oh, man, that's tough. I would say I would say maybe the porter.
Yes.
Okay. So that
Because,
was
and I'll tell you why. Because one, I'm not a huge fan of porters, and two, if I'm gonna have a porter, I'd rather it be a heftier porter. This one felt a little lighter, and didn't have that thick, cloudy taste to it that I think you can find with some other porters.
Right. Okay. So Revolution was number.
I still enjoyed it though, and I drank a
5?
bunch of them happily. It's not like I didn't.
Nice.
It's not like I disliked it. It's just it wouldn't be something I'd order or pick out.
Right. Okay. So the porter is that. Did you have 6 beers by Tonewood?
5.
5. Okay. So that was
4
5.
left. Yes.
Number 4, I would guess. Number 4 is maybe the Improv. Oh, okay. Okay, can I get another guess?
Of course.
The Dreadnought. No. Oh, no. So it's this one then.
No, it's the Freshies.
Freshie. Really? Why is the Freshies?
I enjoyed the Freshies, but I would say that this Fuego it does the job that the Freshies does. I mentioned that the Freshies makes me want to take my shirt off. This Fuego,
Right.
This Fuego does too. Yet I also feel like it's more flavorful. So I feel like I'm getting I'm getting more out of the Fuego than I am out of the Freshies, and so like I'm comparing them against each other. But I guess that's all I have to compare against, theoretically speaking. So
okay, so 5 was Revolution, 4 was Freshies.
Yes.
3 was the Dreadnought.
3 was the Dreadnought.
Okay, 3 was the Dreadnought, and that was
That's the Dunkel,
Stout,
the German
or the Dunkel. Thank you, the Dunkel. Okay, then I'm gonna go with so it's between the Improv and Fuego. I'm gonna say that Fuego is 2 and Improv is 1. All right.
I'm shocked at
why.
how much I enjoyed the Fuego. I mean, excuse me. Well, that too, but I'm shocked at how much I enjoyed the Improv because it was both. It had the best of both worlds. It was very flavorful, and it somehow managed to be both strong yet not overpowering. And I liked it had that a slight aftertaste of the 8% that I liked. Yet it was also very fruity, and it was hoppy, but not like it was also nicely balanced with the fruit. I think, and the Fuego is very great too. It just has less, I'd say less complexity to it. It feels like to me. Yet feels like it has more complexity than the Freshies.
Okay.
And I'm going to happily finish this Fuego right now because it is delicious.
Go for it. So for all of our listeners out there in the States, get your hands on a Tonewood brew. I really hope to get my hands on one.
They're hard to find
back stateside.
But if you're in Philadelphia, I can make it happen. Hit me up. Or you can make it happen.
Go.
I mean, I don't have a hookup, but I know where it is. Just Google it.
Right.
Or if you're in South Jersey, but why would you be? I mean, unless you live there, I guess. Why would you be there?
Right. Well, I appreciate the beer reviews, Jared. Now I think what we'll need to do is I'll definitely get my hands on some new Czech beers.
Yeah.
But I think we should also reach out to some of our listeners out there and see what beers they would like us to review as well.
Okay.
Might be kind of cool to do that. So yeah, I have a Czech beer ready in the fridge for our next episode. So to all of our listeners out there, get ready for episode 43. We'll have another Czech beer for the beer review. But now let's move on. And I think you might know what time it is, Jared. Do you happen to have the time?
My Rolex is never late. That's the unmistakable cuckoo of the untranslatable owl.
That's right. Hopefully in the near future, you'll just have a lever you can pull in your fancy studio.
I'm just going to buy a cuckoo clock.
There you go.
And I'm going to have it intricately made to so these jokes that we always make about the cuckoo clock being on time, or I'm just going to be, there it is.
All right, Jared. So our episode today is focused on conlang, or constructed language. And I have some words that people call Minionese, which is language of the Minions from Despicable Me. I want to tell a couple to you and see if you can guess what they mean.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Sure.
What do you think Speedo means?
Hello.
It's not hello.
Sorry.
Wow, very good.
Was that right?
Yeah,
Oh.
Beto is I'm sorry.
Wow, that
Hello
was a total
is
guess.
yeah, hello is bellow.
Bello. Hello, Bello.
And I will tell our listeners out there that Mignonese, it actually comes from English, Spanish, Japanese, Tagalog, Indonesian. There's all these different kind of languages that have influenced.
I noticed that, and I have a couple Conlang untranslatables, and they're from Reddit users. I'll give the Reddit people their credit, and they mention what their languages are based on, and a lot of them have. So I'll give you one. For example, my first one is by Reddit user Winged Murasaki. And his language, or her, is Kamatshana, and it apparently is comprised of English, Spanish, and Japanese. And the phrase is Shta diasites sunle shta vocala meshdashi. Meshdashi.
Does vocala have to do anything with like vocal?
No.
No.
They put their heads between their ears.
Put their heads between their ears. Is that like putting your heads together?
No. Or you could say he or she put his or her head between his or her ears.
Is that to think?
I mean, yeah, kind of. What it essentially means is they got their act together, or they got their heads out of their asses.
Okay, that makes sense.
They put their they put their heads between their ears.
Okay. Nice. I got another Mignonese Conlang untranslatable for you. I got a couple of these. This next one is Salaka.
Hello, how are you?
Nope.
Get away from me.
Any other guesses?
I come in peace.
Salaka is how dare you.
How dare you? How
Salaka.
rude. Okay, this is okay, I have another one that is Kamatshana. And this is Rentalnya Etethsha, probably. She seeks the sun at night.
She seeks the sun at night. So she's looking for something that cannot be found?
Yeah, I'll give you that. I'll give you one for that. She's going about something the wrong way with almost guaranteed failure.
Okay. All right, so I have one for you, Jared, that you may be able to figure out. This is, one moment here, I'm looking for the name of it. This is from Tarzan, and the word is Tarzan. What do you think Tarzan means?
The language is Tarzan?
The language is called Mangani.
Okay. Does the movie Tarzan have a conlang in it?
The movie doesn't, but the book does.
Oh, okay.
So this stems from the book. So what do you think? So Mangani is the name of the conlang, and the word is Tarzan. What do you think Tarzan means?
I don't know, but I'm so excited to find out. Does it mean like welcome or I come in peace?
Mm-mm. Think about Tarzan. Think about the character Tarzan.
Human.
Not. Think more specifically about Tarzan's appearance.
Naked.
Okay, you're getting closer.
Loincloth.
Not loincloth. So what color fur do apes have?
Black, brown.
Okay. What color skin does Tarzan have?
White.
So
white brown
means white skin.
Oh.
Zan is skin and Tar is white.
Interesting that Tar is white. Because Tar usually has a black connotation around these parts.
For example, Tar Bur in Mangani means snow.
Okay. This is one I like. This is from Ben the Builder. That's the Reddit user. And the language is Sven Helendish, the Turano Ulgrik languages. So I believe maybe this is a dialect of I don't know. And it's a mix of English and I believe Norwegian, I would assume. Hold on one second. This the Studio A is not great if one has any sort of hypoallergenic or respiratory issues. I would highly recommend some sort of filtering system. This is something I actually like, and I might consider using for my own personal life.
Okay.
Unema o chuene. Wheat or bread?
Wheat or bread? Oh man. I'm not sure. Wheat or bread? Can you give me some hints?
So, whenever, we're hanging out and we're walking through the woods like we're wont to do, and you're like, hey, Jared, come over here. And I was like, no, I'm looking at some Playboys I found buried under this log over here. Leave me alone. And you're like, no. And I'm like, all right, bro. Like, is this wheat or bread? Because if you make me put down this Playboy, then it's gonna be serious business.
So is this like something worth seeing, or is this good or bad?
Is it worth my while?
Ah, okay.
So I think it's essentially saying, or this is my guess, where it's like, is this wheat where I'm gonna have to do all the work to make bread, or do you actually have a final product to show me here, something to show me?
Interesting. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean,
we
people
should
make
start
this
using
stuff.
that one. Right. Interesting.
Wheat or bread.
Do you have any more untranslatables, Jared?
Yeah, one more from this language. Actually, let me do a different language. I'll do a different language. This is from Reddit user. Jeez, I just realized what it said. This is from Reddit user Turbo Anal.
Nice.
It's one word, and I just actually read it, and I was like, oh.
Put two and two together.
Well, I'm gonna use his word, so I guess the least I could do is give him his credit. Shout out to you, fair. Turbo Anal. In his language or her, let's be honest. Anyway, is Malali, asterisk, Malali asterisk, and it's a mix of English and Italian, and it's Vias Namulasari Viastrali Nilia.
Sounds nice.
Much like the Reddit user's name, it sounds very nice. And it literally means to hasten to shoot we hasten to shoot hasty foxes.
Does this have any reference to his Reddit screen name?
No. This is actually one of the more well thought out ones, which is almost it seems a little too deep. Where it's like, I feel like I must put too much thought into this. Is
this like just good things come to those who wait?
No. This one I like. So we hasten to shoot hasty foxes. What it essentially means is we assume people are guilty of something because they show any sign of nervousness, and then we almost want them, like we want to say they're guilty before we actually know, just so you can be right and rebuke them essentially.
Okay.
So it's saying you're hasty to assume that someone's guilty so you can be righteous. That's the good way to explain it.
Pretty deep.
Yeah.
Okay, I got one last Minionese one for you.
Speaking of deep languages.
Right.
Did you mention that it's from Despicable Me, by the way?
Yes.
Okay.
And the Minions movie as well. Any
right.
movie with the Minions in it, yes.
Right.
And also the guy who created the
Steve Carell.
It wasn't Steve Carell, but I forget the name of the guy, but the guy who created the language for the Minions basically just wanted it. He based it more off of sounds, I think, and took all the influences from different languages. So here we go. So, ta-ta-ta balatu.
Ooh, I like that one. Get away from me.
You're kind of close.
Ta-ta-ta
balatu.
I will attack you.
Not quite.
Who are you?
Ta-ta-ta balatu means I hate you.
Oh, wow. Tatala balatu. That's something you could use if you want to tell someone you hate them and to their face. Watch, you'll get to someone that actually knows Mignonese, and they'll be like, oh, "How dare you?"
How dare you?
Like, oh,
Then
shit,
what you can
sorry.
say. Then what you can say after that though is "Tulalilu ti amo."
Is that another Mignonese phrase? What does that mean?
Tulalilu ti amo. Ti amo is like te amo.
Which is I love you.
We and Tulalilu is we love you. Tulalilu ti amo. We love you.
I'll just stick to this.
Many fregista. That's fair. That's
a lot easier.
Well, Jared, I would like to start us off, unless you have any other untranslatables.
No, maybe I'll sprinkle one or two in later, but not really.
Okay. Sounds good. So I'd like to start us off with our main segment today, Conlang 101, What Is It? Before we even begin describing what it is, well, it's obvious it's constructed language or fictional language used in a film or novel or comic or also video games. But some of our listeners out there might be thinking, well, who cares? Why are you even doing an episode on Conlang besides the fact that it's interesting? I have 5 reasons for our listeners how learning in Conlang can improve your own language learning.
Okay.
So number 1, Conlangs usually, because they are constructed languages, they actually simplify language structure. So strange grammatical exceptions and weird grammar rules, generally speaking, I mean, I'm not a Conlang linguistic expert, but the basic research I've been doing, it seems like the language structure for many Conlangs is very simple, which would make sense. Why would you come up with a language that's going to be really complicated and really difficult to use, right? I mean, the whole point of Conlang is to give either a character in a movie or a novel, good language they can use.
I started this episode with some Tokipona, and Tokipona is a common or a well-known Conlang in that world. And what they say about Tokipona is that what makes it so great and the point of it is that it is an extremely simplified, a minimalist language. So there's 120 to 125 root words, and the language has 14 phonemes. I don't know what that is, but I know it has 100 to 125 words, and it was developed so someone with any native language can pick it up. So the pronunciations are simplified, and the sentence structures are simplified. So theoretically, it should be easy for someone of any language to pick up. Which just that concept alone, how do you even I don't know. I'm going to keep asking this, but how do you even think of that? Right. By the way, I don't want to jump the gun because people are I just want to make it clear. Don't worry. I have already followed the Language Creation Society on Twitter. So I've made the initial connection, and their Twitter handle is @fiatlingua. I'm not really sure why, but I do know that it is in the crest of their logo. So
lingua means language.
I know that. Fiat is a kind of unreliable Italian car.
I think it has another meaning as well. But yeah. Anyways, so that was number 1. Usually the languages are the structures are fairly simple or even minimalist, as Jared mentioned. Conlangs can also help you learn other languages because a lot of Conlangs have some type of root in different languages, right? Like I mentioned, Mignonese has roots in English, Spanish, Japanese.
And evil.
Yes, Tagalog, Indonesian. And there are other languages as well that have either influences from Romance languages, also from Slavic languages.
At first, I felt some type of way about that, but then I thought, there's plenty of very well-established languages that are just mutilations of some other language. So I don't know why this is such a foreign concept to me.
That's true. And then I would also say that Conlang also lets you think beyond what ordinary humans can think of, because a lot of these Conlangs are thought up in some type of fantasy realm or fantasy world. And so the languages, at least I've done a little bit of reading on the different types of Elvish in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, and I read Lord of the Rings years ago, and I think it's really cool that you can create this other language that kind of gives a whole nother atmosphere and dynamic in a novel or a movie. Also kind of like Dothraki in Game of Thrones, kind of has a cool sound to it.
I've never seen Game of Thrones, and I've never seen and or read Lord of the Rings. Now, let me ask you this. When you read Lord of the Rings, did you pick up on any like words that like, oh, I remember this Elvish word? Like, did they say like da-da-da all the time or something?
I believe the word Han is this.
Okay. That's an interesting one.
Yeah. Yeah. The other cool thing, too, is I think
one that
conlangs...
you know, but
okay. Right. I think the other cool thing about conlangs as well is it forces you to also think about pronunciation a little differently. If you only speak English and then you try to learn Klingon or one of the types of Elvish, there's high and low Elvish. I don't know if you knew that, Jared. But,
no. Is it like Hochdeutsch and like Schwäbisch or something like that?
Well, so there's, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing them right, but they have, I believe it's like Kyrian or something like that. And then, what is the other type of Elvish? One moment here. It starts with an S. There's two types of Elvish. There is
Esperanto.
It's not Esperanto.
Oh, that's a famous. I think that might be from Game of Thrones. I'm not sure.
I'm trying to think of it. It's, anyways, it doesn't really matter. But they are just very different. One of them comes from, I believe, Welsh, and the other one has a different.
Is it Quenya? Wait, no, that's the.
Yes,
grammar.
And Sindarin.
Okay, there you go.
Is the other one Sindarin? Quenya and Sindarin. So they have a different kind of root of the language, and apparently Tolkien wrote Elvish or these two types of Elvish before he actually wrote Lord of the Rings. So it's kind of interesting. He
I saw that.
Which is
I guess
cool.
I'll just use this. I wonder if he wrote it because did he just have like an interest for linguism, or did he write it knowing that he was going to write a book that it would probably be used in? Maybe both.
I think it was probably a bit of both. Yeah.
Yeah. As I say it, that probably makes the most sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's really cool, and you can learn kind of different pronunciations. And then the last thing is that I think con languages are really a cool expression. I kind of mentioned this earlier, of art and artists as well. It just gives a different environment, different atmosphere, right? If you've ever seen the movie Avatar, when the people from Avatar are speaking Na'vi, or as I mentioned, the Dothraki in Game of Thrones, it just gives it a different feel.
It requires a very a nice dose of both artistry and also science, which I think is people tend to say that they're either more scientific leaning or more artistic leaning, and this requires you to blend both into one, I think. Also, apparently, from what I've read I was reading an article, it was in Wired magazine, and they were saying that by now viewers expect their alien or foreign languages to sound like they have syntax and grammar. No longer would a scene like this one, they have a picture that no one else could see except for me. For my Return of the Jedi, Princess Leia and the Bounty Hunter speaking fictional language Ubis to Jabba past muster. So apparently that is the conlang, but it's kind of like a shoddy one. And so I think what they're getting at is even people that don't care about conlangs or don't follow conlang can tell when it's a real language or just gibberish.
Right. Oh, definitely. I would agree. And most conlangs that I can think of come from some type of fantasy movie, television show, video game.
Do you want to run through some of them?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
We can run through some of the popular ones. So you mentioned Lord of the Rings. That was Elvish.
Yep.
Were you a big Lord of the Rings fan? I mean, you read it, as you just said.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love Lord of the Rings. And this may be a very unpopular opinion. I don't know why people necessarily compare the two, but people always ask me. Yeah, I am. A lot of
Harry Potter?
Yes, Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. I think it's just because I'm pretty sure both authors were British,
Okay.
and they're both obviously kind of fantasy.
Do people often go to the fact that like Harry Potter copied Lord of the Rings? Is that a common statement?
I don't think so. I've never heard that before. I personally prefer Lord of the Rings. A lot of our millennial listeners might get angry at me for that view.
I'm not a huge fan of either, so I don't really care. I've only seen one of the Lord of the Rings and I've seen I've seen all of the Harry Potters, but I started dozing off through a good bit of them after about the fifth.
I mean, the Lord of the Rings
3.5 hours
movies
long.
are long, and so are the Harry Potter movies. But
Yeah.
I would say, at least for me, the Lord of the Rings movies, I don't know, I really enjoy them. I don't know why, but I just really enjoy them.
There's no denying that they're good. I'm not saying they're not good just because I haven't seen them, but I think it's also just what you've grown up with, because the people that say Harry Potter is better, like grew up on it and are obsessed with it. Much like, I don't know if you're obsessed with Lord of the Rings, but you grew up on it more than you grew up on Harry Potter, so
Right.
that makes sense.
Right.
Enjoy what you want to enjoy. Apparently, have you seen Clockwork Orange?
I have.
Clockwork Orange is a good but kind of messed up movie. Essentially
Very
about a group of malcontents, and one of them gets taken away, and he has shock therapy, and apparently they use a conlang in there, and it is a mix of Russian and quote unquote gypsy words in English, and they say, I'll give you some examples. I read this with care, my brothers. And they're speaking in a British accent. I read this with care, my brothers. Slurping away at the old chai. Cup after tass, after chassa. Crunching my lomticks of black toast dipped in jammy wham and eggy wig. Never again will I do that.
I kind of liked it. I was hoping you'd give a few more.
That's all I had there anyway.
Well, they're drinking tea. I only know that because chai is also the Czech word for tea.
And chai is a kind of tea.
Also true. I'm assuming tass is like tassa.
Yeah, cup.
Right? Cup.
Mm-hmm.
And
chassa? Tass? Chassa?
What's chassa?
Chassa is essentially just saying
like
chai. It's just saying chai tass, so it's teacup.
Oh, teacup. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. And black jam? Is that what you said? Or
no,
black
I said
toast?
jammy wem, which is just jam.
Jam, right.
And then egg, which is just egg.
Eggs.
Eggy
that
weg.
That reminds me, we kind of had our own little well, I wouldn't say it was complex enough to be a conlang. But,
or you say iggity?
Yeah, so when Jared and I were still in college, we would add the suffix iggity onto all sorts of words, and got really interesting and pretty funny.
I think that's kind of a natural like a natural inclination for people to want to have kind of secret languages, because we would kind of definitely do it a little bit so people wouldn't know what we were talking about for sure.
Right. And if you do it fast enough, people can't follow.
And if you just respond to it like that was a normal sentence,
yeah,
which to us it is, but it's not hard. Like, it's hard to decipher. But if people aren't really paying attention and you just have it like keep going like it's a normal conversation, a lot of times people don't even pay attention. Because it sounds like words, but...
Right. It's kind of like Pig Latin, a little bit.
I just had a conversation with someone earlier today about Pig Latin, because I mentioned that I was doing a lot of weird deep dives into conlang, and she brought up Pig Latin. What is Pig Latin? I love how you just brought it up so confidently, then I ask you what it is, you're like, I have no idea. Is that like when they go like ixnay on the...
Ig pay atin lay. Yeah,
a made-up language. Pig Latin language. Hold on a second.
Yeah. It's a
Pig Latin language. Is a made-up language formed from English by transferring the initial consonant or consonant cluster of each word to the next of the word and adding a vocalic syllable using Pig Latin. Usually Pig Latin.
Ig pay atin lay would be Pig Latin in Pig Latin.
Oh, okay.
Ig pay atin lay. Mm-hmm.
So what does ixnay stand for? Ixnay. Because people always say, "Ooh, ixnay on the
right ixnay."
Nix. Oh, nix the conversation. I like okay. Because people always say like ixnay on the blah 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 talk, so it's like nix the conversation. Okay. Now I know. That's how I.
You could say ixnay on the opicte.
So
nix
Pig
the
Latin
topic
has
out.
no real connection to Latin other than it kind of sounds like Latin words when you do that a lot.
Maybe.
Because
Yeah,
a lot
I'm
of
not
Latin,
sure.
I believe, ends with vowels like that.
Mhm.
So maybe
Right.
it just sounds. Maybe that's why it is. I'm learning something here myself, everyone. This is what
Very
it's all
good.
about. Do you want to go through some more conlangs, some popular ones?
I do, but first I want to touch back on Clockwork Orange. Do you know
Oh,
the
right.
name of that conlang?
Did I? Oh, I didn't even mention it.
It's called Nadsat, which is more or less like a translation of teenage. And what's funny now, I've
From what
learned
language?
enough-
Russian.
Russian, yeah.
Okay.
What's interesting though is Russian and Czech are both Slavic languages, so there are words that if I like read a list of Nadsat words, some of them I can pick up.
Right. So
Which is kind of cool.
You've seen Clockwork Orange. What do you think is their reasoning behind mixing the Russian in there?
I'm not
Does it
sure.
have anything to do with control? Because they talk about. I mean, all this movie is all about giving up control of your body because you're.
Right.
And it's maybe it has a slight like reference to communism and losing control. This is just guesses. I'm just throwing stuff out there right now.
Right. I'm not really sure why they picked Russian, to be completely honest with you.
Maybe it just
I
sounds.
don't have an
maybe
answer.
it just sounds nice.
Yeah.
Maybe it just sounds how they wanted to for the movie.
Right. Like the word brat is Russian for brother, and they use that in the movie.
Okay.
They probably pronounce it differently than I just said it.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've seen Clockwork Orange.
Me too.
But yeah.
You have to be in
yeah,
the mood
it's-
to watch that movie. That's not just a movie you pop on.
Right. Well, it's like
Go
that,
relax.
It's like that it's by Stanley Kubrick, isn't it?
I believe so.
And most of his movies they're good movies, but yeah, I have
They're
to
very
be,
intense.
yeah. Okay, so we touched on one, Nadsat from Clockwork Orange. What other conlangs do you know of, Jared?
Hootes? Have you heard of Hootes?
That's from Star Wars, right?
Yes. Are you up to date on your Star Wars knowledge?
I wouldn't say up to date, but I've seen most of the movies. I haven't seen the newest ones.
Okay, that's fine. That's probably fine for that. Yeah, it is. Star Wars sound designer Ben Burtt created Hootes. So Ben Burtt is probably like a sound engineer by trade and probably just enjoys conlang or in his spare time. Sound designer Ben Burtt created Hootes for Return of the Jedi in 1983. Burtt derived the language from an ancient Incan dialect called Quechua. It's a fictional language that is mainly spoken by Jabba the Hutt and his species on Tatooine, but many other characters can't speak Hootes, such as CP3O, Anakin Skywalker, and so is that when in Watto from? Is that when Harrison Ford is sitting there talking to the guy and he's talking back at him and he shoots him?
I think so.
So apparently that is in the other thing I was saying before is they were saying that Hootes don't really stick up to muster these days.
Probably not, yeah.
Okay. The
I would
next
say
one,
probably
which
not.
I think might be one of the best, most well-known, even if you're not a Star Trek fan, Klingon, which is I believe, a very well-developed conlang, to the point where, did you know, fun fact about Klingon is it's now in Duolingo. It's also
Really?
not
I
the
didn't know
first.
that.
It's also not the first conlang to be in Duolingo. It's only been in Duolingo since I believe
Esperanto's probably the first, right?
Esperanto and High Valerian, which I believe is from Game of Thrones.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And Klingon was put in there in earlier this year, so earlier in 2018, I believe March or May or something like that. And what they say is the reason there's really nothing, no one's really against putting conlangs into Duolingo, but the way that languages are added to Duolingo is that they're all volunteer input. So it really just is a matter of finding people that have the time and expertise of the language to be able to construct the courses and add all the vocabulary that you need to add. So you just need the time, the mix of someone that has the time and knowledge and somehow also doesn't have a job.
Right. Well, I think also con languages, like any languages, also grow and evolve over time. I believe Klingon has grown quite a bit, as well as Na'vi from Avatar.
Yeah, I'd imagine that. That makes sense. I mean, you could probably since especially a show like Star Trek that's had so many seasons and different iterations. It's had probably so many different people where it's like so many different opportunities to use it a lot and be like, oh, this doesn't really add up if you do it this way. Then hire some new linguists to adjust it or to add new vocabulary or grammar that makes other stuff make more sense. And as I mentioned a second ago, is that as we progress, the scrutiny that conlang is put under is increased highly. And so that stuff that might have passed in the 80s, or even before, I guess Klingon's from way before the 80s, isn't it?
I think so.
Would not fly today. Oh, jeez. I had something I was going to say, and then I just lost it immediately because I was just on this hot streak. Have you ever like thought about conlang or when you were a kid, say thought about making up your own language?
Probably, I would imagine so, or at least a secret language for
I
sure.
can imagine making a secret language like in elementary school or something. I can't think of anything specifically, but that definitely sounds like something kids would do. But as I said before, it's that natural kind of tribalism that I think humans have, where it's like this is our own thing, and you have to be part of this group to even understand this.
So here's another conlang I want to give to our listeners. It's from 1984, the book by George Orwell.
Yes,
which is a great read.
I own it.
Our
world's going that way. Just wait.
It is. We called it here first. You heard it.
What is Newspeak?
Newspeak is it was created by George Orwell to basically kind of, it was a totalitarian regime. That replaced English with Newspeak, which wanted to wipe out English altogether. And the purpose of Newspeak is basically to narrow a person's range of thought. For example, do you know what they called a forced labor camp in 1984?
I should. It's been a while since I've read it, but I actually had to read it for English in high school, so I actually should.
Nice.
What was
Your English teacher's disappointed in you, Jared.
She was great, Miss O. Shout out to you.
Nice. Joy Camp.
Oh,
Joy Camp.
So it's essentially it's all English.
Yeah.
But it's essentially like since what 1984, if you don't know what it is about, it's about a totalitarian sort of dystopian future where the government is in control of essentially every aspect of your life, from what you eat, think, do, who you communicate with, what you say. And so I assume what they're getting at from this is that there's a government-approved language that and words that you're allowed to use, and it, for example, Joy Camp, which is just a concentration camp, it's used to it's still its own language in the sense that it's a mutation of English and a mutation of what words mean in English, but it's
right, which we are seeing now in real life with words like alternative facts.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Or like fake news and stuff like that. Yeah.
We're seeing it now, people.
Oh my gosh.
So be aware. Alternative facts are not alternative facts.
This is starting to remind me of some of the rabbit holes I went down during this research, because that's another thing that I found during this conlang research is that a lot of the people on the conlang, like in the forums and like deep into the conlang world, are not fans of movies like Avatar or Game of Thrones that have popularized conlang to your average book nerd or comic book nerd. They're like from what I've heard, they've kind of gotten over it. You kind of have to at this point. But it seems like there was a lot of snootiness to these newcomers to conlang that just happen to pick up a fun book or happen to see a fun movie, and now you're interested in a conlang, where it's like, no, the whole point of this conlang was for. It seems like there's also a lot of connection to like dystopian futures in the sense where it's like we need to figure out how to communicate with each other once the world goes fully to shit and society fails. I got a lot of that sense in there too, where it's like that's why they like a lot of the secretive nifts to it, where it's like, this is for me and my clan.
Right. Or it is like an ancient language. Like in
Yes.
Lord of the Rings and in Game of Thrones. So for
But those
example,
are more. See, that's the difference between making it for a movie or like just the personal fans of it. Because I feel like the fans of
Right.
it are not doing it for movies, really.
Right. What's interesting though about
I don't know. I'm not that deep into
Elvish.
the world.
Right. What's interesting about Elvish, specifically Sindarin, which is one of the two types of Elvish, is it is based on Welsh, at least the sounds of Welsh. And when the books were adapted into film, Peter Jackson actually hired a linguist named David Salo, who is the world's leading expert, or one of them at least, in Sindarin, who translated the film dialogue from English into Elvish and provide pronunciation advice to the cast.
Man, that sounds like a level of tediousness that I only dream about achieving. Like, that sounds like such a tedious process. I try to do Google research into, like, how you develop a language, and people talked about how, it's difficult, or, how it's based off of these languages, and it requires these skills. But I want to know how you were thinking of these words, and how do you decide on a word? I feel like I'm also way too particular, where I'd spend too much time trying to decide on whether I want a word to sound like this or like this, where it's like it's like I'm trying to build a language here. I don't have this much time to be this particular about one word, because ideally a language... Oh, I haven't done any research into this, and I easily should have or could have. Do you know how many languages or how many words or different forms are required for a language to officially be required or called a language?
I would
Because
assume
Tokipona's
somewhere
a language.
over. Right, I would assume over 1,000 words
Okay,
would be my guess.
that's a lot. That seems like a lot.
I mean, I think there's a lot of conlangs that have 3,000 words, if not
Oh, for
more.
sure. I believe it. How many words does English have?
Millions. I would say English has to have at least 1 million words.
All right, well, we'll get both of those answers. I'm going to first find out how many words does a conlang word. So a conlang, usually it seems like, this is just the first thing I clicked on, but it seems like it needs about, I don't want you to look up how many words English has, because I want to see if you got it right, and I want to give you a hot or cold.
All right, well, too
Well,
late.
you already know. So anyway, a conlang needs about 1,800 words. On average, it seems like. It says it depends on the language, blah, blah, blah. But it could be anywhere from 1,800 to hundreds of thousands to sometimes even in the millions.
Okay. I believe it.
What's English?
English, well, right here, many estimate that this is from English First. How many words are there in the English language? Many people estimate that there are more than 1 million words in the English language. In fact, during a project looking at words in digitized books, researchers from Harvard and Google estimated a total of 1,022,000 words.
Wow, good job for you.
Yep, that the number would grow by several thousand each year. When you see a massive number like this, though, it's important to remember that this includes different forms of the same word. It also includes lots of words that we would call archaic.
Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
Can we pause it? Because much like this Tonewood, my bladder's on fuego, but I have a lot more that I want
Sure.
to say about this.
Absolutely. Right. We'll be back to you all shortly. So there is also another conlang. We mentioned Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. Do you happen to know the conlang in Harry Potter by chance, Jared?
Is that what the snakes speak?
Yeah, parcel tongue.
Okay, I was about to say basilisk. What's basilisk? Is that the tooth?
I think so, yeah.
Basilisk tooth?
Might be. I'm the wrong person to ask this. I'm not sure.
There are many people listening right now that are getting very angry at my lack of Harry Potter knowledge.
You and me both. But yeah.
Parcel tongue.
And the people who can... Exactly. The people who speak parcel tongue are called parcel mouths.
Okay, and that's what Harry Potter spoke to that snake.
Exactly. And I believe J.K. Rowling, I could be wrong, but I thought she hired a linguist. Yes, Dr. Francis Nolan of the University of Cambridge created Parseltongue.
Okay.
So there you
right.
go. Uh-huh. And yeah, I don't speak Parseltongue nor know any words, unfortunately.
I do.
You're going to be pissing off so many of our Harry Potter listeners. Oh, well.
They'll be okay. Apparently, Disney's Atlantis. Do you remember that movie?
Uh-huh.
There was a conlang in there. Disney hired linguist Mark Okrand, the same linguist who created Klingon for Star Trek, to develop a living language for 2001's Atlantis: The Lost Empire. He made Atlantean as the mother language for the animated film screenwriters and concept artist. The fictional language was derived from Indo-European words with a mix of Sumerian and North American languages. Okrand created a complex writing and language system with writers, scripts, and Atlantean alphabet and reader script for the Disney animated film. Like, just imagine going through and doing all that and like figuring out this entire alphabet, and then like as you're putting together the language, realize like, oh wait, I need one more letter in here. Do you just slide it in somewhere and keep going, or do you have to like start over and reorganize your alphabet?
I think the order of the alphabet's kind of arbitrary. I think you can...
That's a good point.
So,
yeah. I guess the only reason the ABCs are the way they are is so you can remember them.
Exactly.
Like, I guess there's no reason why A has to be before X, really.
Right. And speaking of linguists, you mentioned, I believe, a linguist, wrote the conlang for Atlantis. Klingon was also written by a linguist named Mark Okrand.
That's what I just said.
Same guy, huh?
Yeah, that's what I just said.
But he created Klingon.
The same guy that created Klingon created the language for Atlantis.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is pretty crazy. I would be worried if I was creating languages that they'd sound the same.
But I think I think it's easy to prevent that if you know what you're doing. Where it's like,
that's fair.
I feel like you have to be hyper aware of people, especially if you know you're doing it for movies and you're aware of how rabid these goddamn Klingon fans and Star Trek fans are. That I feel like just for your own well-being, you know that you got to make sure that someone's like, well, yeah, I mean, Atlantis was a fine movie for kids, but it's really just a dialect. I mean, the language they use, Atlantean, is really just a dialect of Klingon, and you could clearly hear a lot of the same roots and grammatical constructions, but it's fine. I mean, it's still made by a great man, Mark Okrand.
Right.
I can imagine that conversation happening in many forums.
The funny thing about Klingon, though, is a couple fun facts for our listeners out there. Shakespeare's Hamlet has been translated into Klingon, and there are also Klingon dictionaries out there, and the language is spoken on different television shows, like The Big Bang Theory, where, the main characters are known as being kind of nerdy. So
Shakespeare's a conlanger himself.
That is true.
He conlanged himself. He's such a good conlanger that it's normal American lexicon,
English.
Normal English lexicon now.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, there's a lot of words we use nowadays and we don't even think twice of, but Shakespeare, invented them.
You mentioned Avatar. Mm-hmm. Avatar, directed by James Cameron, was people are very. Did you like that movie?
Loved it. It's a great movie.
People are very polarized on that movie. They either love it or hate it. I remember when I first started heard people saying that it was like the shittiest movie ever. And I was like, what? And then I started looking at it differently. I was like, do they have a point? And I was like, I don't know.
Do they?
But anyway, I'm not going to let other people affect my opinions. But anyway, the language that they speak in that movie is called Na'vi, and there's an apostrophe in the middle. Oh, by the way, speaking of Duolingo, something that Duolingo had to do for other languages such as Klingon and other conlangs was adjust for there being apostrophes in the middle of words, because no other established language does that.
Mm-hmm.
Fun fact. That was fun, wasn't it?
Very fun.
So Cameron's team, I'm not going to say James Cameron because it's not like he has a list of linguists that he just hits up. But James Cameron's team hired a linguist from USC, University of Southern California. His name is Dr. Paul Frommer, to help bring the alien culture of the Na'vi to the big screen. The pair worked for months creating a language that was a mixture of Ethiopian and New Zealand Maori
Mm-hmm.
Languages to develop a lexicon with more than 1,000 words. Since the release of Avatar, Frommer has continuously added new words and expanded the grammatical rules of Na'vi on his own side. So just for his own fun, he just keeps it going. He's like, well, I started this. No reason to start it and let it die immediately. Let's have some fun with it. That's, it's interesting to me, too, as someone that, you hear about, especially a James Cameron movie, having these ridiculous, record-breaking budgets. And it's like, okay, this is where some of these millions is. Like you wonder, it's like, how do you spend $500 million or whatever the crazy budget is on a movie? Then you hear about them hiring a linguist to spend hours and months just developing 1,000+ word language. It's like, all right, that's probably a good mill right there, burn through already.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, you're not wrong.
It's starting to make some sense. What's
also interesting regarding Conlang, I mentioned Mangani, which is from the Tarzan novels, and there is also... Well, first of all, the language itself is designed to be very wild and animalistic. And there's a dictionary of Mangani.
Which makes sense.
Which is also pretty interesting. And Mangani is derived from various African languages from the area where the events take place, which makes sense. I was actually looking up, speaking of, fantasy things taking place in Africa, I was looking to see if there was a conlang for Black Panther, but it turns out in the film they actually spoke Xhosa, which is
an established language.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I mean, I guess that's also good to do if you're representing an African country, where it's like there's so many village languages that the vast 99% of Americans have no concept of.
Right.
That we can pick from, and it's not like these languages are copyrighted.
Right.
And then we don't have to spend that cool million to develop our. Sorry, I'm pouring myself some tea. We don't have to spend that cool million to develop a brand new language.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That'll just be ridiculed anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I cannot imagine trying to create a conlang. I feel like it would be. I think what you would have to do is find roots in, at least maybe the way I would try to approach it would be to find roots in languages I know, English, German, Czech, Spanish, and kind of try to, derivate from those roots. But it'd be hard.
The Untranslatable podcast should have its own conlang, no?
Yeah, we could try it. That'd be tough.
So, my two questions for you regarding the Untranslatable conlang is, what would we call it? And two, maybe two will be easier to start with. What would we want it to be based on? Now, obviously, as you said, it has to be based off of stuff that we already know. English, probably going to be a clear influence on this language. German, probably going to be a clear influence on this language. Just the two languages that you and I both know the best.
Mm-hmm.
What else? What's an interesting language to throw in there? I feel like I want to also have maybe some sort of I don't want it to be all
maybe.
Right. Well, Afrikaans this is Dutch.
Right.
I don't want it to be all European based. So maybe some Swahili or something.
That'd be cool.
So maybe English, German, English, German, Swahili so far is just Afrikaans.
Toss some Arabic in there maybe.
Yeah.
Or some type of also maybe some Romance languages in there, Spanish, Italian, or French. Maybe toss in some Mandarin or some Japanese. I don't know. It'd be tough.
So what would we call it? Chajartse.
There you go.
Because it has Chad and Chajartse.
I kind of like that. That has a nice sound to it. Chajartse.
See, it's so funny too, because when I do that, it's so clearly me just making noises.
Right.
It's interesting where I feel like you can tell the difference between someone just making noises and actually saying words.
You know what's funny is when I first moved to the Czech Republic, it sounded like people are just making noises, and now I hear the words. Yeah.
Yeah, you can at least might not know what they're saying, but you at least can recognize what they're saying as words.
Right.
I understand that.
And that's the difficulty in making a conlang, I think.
Right, because you can't just make it up like that. It has to actually, like, it takes way more. And I just don't have that level of focus. Like, if I were to do it, I would at least have to get some sort of Adderall prescription. Because my focus is not on fuego.
Right. That'd be
like
tough.
my bladder just was. Shit, we had a conversation about me editing that out, and I just ruined it. What's the potential for a conlang to become a national language or a actually used language outside of just movies or forums?
I would say it would have to get just a large enough following.
It seems like at this point it will require some sort of dystopian future, almost some sort of 1984 scenario. Not 1984 in the sense that there's a government-made language. It's like you have to say it. I can imagine that happening. But I mean more in the sense of we need some sort of like apocalyptic scenario to happen where we're essentially starting from scratch.
Or it's kind of like the movie Idiocracy.
Yes, which I haven't seen, but I'm very familiar with the. It's almost like a parallel universe to what's happening now, and it's like a more ridiculous, but almost kind of weirdly realistic, like plausible. Which people also say is getting weird, scarily similar to reality.
Right.
Which I hear that comparison a lot, but I've never seen it, and I still feel like every time I hear that comparison, I'm always like, man, I really need to see that. I love Terry Crews. I love Dax Shepard.
It's a great movie.
They're the only two that I know that are in there.
It's
but
pretty funny.
I love those two guys. Okay, so I feel like it requires some sort of dystopian future. Have you heard? Did you do any research into alien conlang?
I did not. No.
Well,
Well, I can tell you, I did a little bit of reading on it, and basically, alien conlang first was developed to sound as like unhuman as possible, which makes sense.
Yes, right? And it's more hieroglyphic as far as the alphabet goes.
Right, but that was
like
about
I found
all
one called Rick Chick.
Okay,
and it's essentially like almost a graphically set up mix of straight lines and sort of circles and stuff. Do you want to? Can I? Now I know you always hate when I play stuff on this podcast, but do you want to hear a little Toki Pona?
Sure, absolutely.
There's a video that I found. I found two things. One, I'm not gonna do this to people, but I did find a short film that wasn't that bad.
Oh, nice. Okay.
All in Toki Pona. Then I found a clip of a dude that was explaining a dream he had in Toki Pona, and he's just staring at his computer. Explaining this dream, and I'll play it for you right now. Although there's probably going to be an ad now that I think about it. Actually, probably not. Is this guy going to actually...
We'll find out.
Meli pisin ala lilon tomo ona. Liwili ala tawama tani.
Now, hold on. Let me. You can hear it, can't you?
Yeah, I can hear it. No problem.
I'm going to start it over, and as he's talking, I'm going to read a little bit of what the explanation is.
Saying? Okay, cool.
Yes. So I'll start it over.
I
dream. An old lady is in her house. She doesn't want to go out. Because of that, a lot of dogs are around. Now she looks at the door. In the back of her house, she goes outside, gets in the car, and rides away. Lots of neighbors, but none have seen her. There you go.
Interesting.
A little Toki Pona for you. Toki Pona is apparently supposed to be one of the simplified language I started this episode with.
Right.
And this dude, I assume, is just a fan of conlang because his name is Paul Cousin. He has 15 subscribers, which, hey, by the way, is more than us on YouTube, so I'm not shitting on the guy.
That's fair.
All I'm saying is, yeah, he's just I found it. Actually, I believe he's a French guy because what it says in parentheses is sous-titres, which I believe is French for subtitles.
Oh, could be.
Yet the subtitles are in English.
Huh. Interesting.
So I don't know. And Paul Cousin could be Paul Cousine easily.
Right. So shout out to you, Paul. Thanks for sharing that conlang video. What's the name of the conlang video?
That's Toki Pona.
Nice. Do you have anything else to add about conlangs, Jared?
Oh, yes I do. Yes I do. kind of seems like a waste of time to me. Unless it's your job, unless it's your job and you're making it for, you're hired to do this and you're a linguist that enjoys. I mean, I don't think it's a waste of time to be a hobby, but I think as someone that is if you were someone like you and I that enjoys knowing other languages and learning other languages, I would not waste my time learning a conlang. I much rather use a language that's applicable to actual day-to-day usage, even if it's a not popular language or not widely spoken language. At least it has way more use than the people on the internet I can speak conlang to.
Yeah, I would say it just depends on how big of a fan you are of something as well. If you are a huge Star Trek fan, if you're a big Trekkie, I think it would make sense. If you are a big Lord of the Rings fan, maybe it makes sense.
It's fun. That's what I'm saying. It's fun to research, but that's
Right.
more like deep diving into it.
That's fair.
And that's not someone that's like as far as deciding between, for example, Swahili, like I mentioned earlier, or any conlang language. I'm always going to choose Swahili 100% of the time, or Spanish or whatever the actual language is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Would you ever learn a conlang?
I don't think I'm a big enough fan of any of the current films.
But you don't
or
have
novels.
to be. Conlang is used commonly in movies and books, but it is not. Conlang would exist without these movies.
That's
and
true.
books
It's not exclusive to only books and movies.
Especially as long as there's internet and forums and YouTube and all that
Right.
stuff, conlangs will live long and prosper.
I think
See what I did there, by the way?
I do see that was very clever. I will say I think if I were to learn a conlang, it would probably be one of the Elvish languages from Lord of the Rings. Because I think
Are you that big of a fan?
Not really. I just think it sounds really
But you
cool.
like how it sounds.
Yeah, it sounds cool. And it also like the
And to impress the ladies.
Of course. I mean, if you can't get girls with your Elvish, they're not worth your time. Let's be real.
That's why I'm learning Tokipana.
Exactly.
Pona.
Exactly.
I say it wrong every time.
But yeah, I think Elvish would be kind of cool. And I also like the phrasing of the language. It sounds very kind of fancy, very historic, maybe archaic.
Yes.
I don't know.
I enjoy the concept of the process of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's not for me.
Right.
Once again, too tedious.
Right. It is.
So-
And it's a big time commitment. And I completely understand and agree with where you're coming from with if you're going to learn a language, it might be better to learn a language that you can really use in real life. And I would agree with you. I think it's just different.
It's a hobby like playing guitar or piano is for you and podcasting is for us. Where it's like,
Right.
if we weren't doing this, for example, we could be making up our own language and communicating with aliens.
That's fair.
I need to tell you about one more
Okay.
conlang that I discovered on the world famous Reddit.
Okay.
And this was submitted by Chresevs, Chrsevs. And someone just put out the question, who's developed conlangs that aren't just for humans?
Interesting.
And Chresevs said, I came up with a framework for a scent-based language for ants, which I guess could be applied to any similar critters. That's what he was asking. That's what the question was. Did you think of a conlang for animals? And he said, I called it Formic. Per the scientific family designation of ants, Formidae. It was for a class in language. It was for a class in language construction I had during undergrad, and I did it as a way to teach the difference between animal and human communication, namely that animals have signals which have specific meanings, whereas humans have signals with no meanings attached as far as language does.
Right. Yeah.
The arbitrariness of the phones in speech is what allows us to combine them to form hypothetically infinite messages.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought about how that might work with another creature using another signal that was made arbitrary. Ants primarily communicate through sense, and so I looked up what sort of chemicals they respond to as well as in certain cases where that chemical comes from for them and how it behaves. For someone to write such a detailed, there's more, by the way, which I'm not even going to get into. For someone to have written such a detailed explanation of a scent-based language that he or she developed on Reddit, I can only imagine how good the actual language was. If your actual description that you spent at least a good, I would say, 10 to 15 minutes typing out.
Exactly. Well, I would also say that
unless you just took your thesis from your paper or something.
Right. Could be. You never know. But I would also say, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, there's kind of a language the way dogs wag their tails.
Yeah, and people always talk about how, and you can relate to this more than I, because I've never had a pet, but how different dogs have very specific personalities and how there are specific sort of communication cues that they have, and they're all it's all different based off of the dog. I know you've had multiple dogs in your day, same breed.
Yep.
But I assume you would still say that you could clearly tell different personalities between all of them.
100%. Yeah, we always have had Basset Hounds in my family. And Basset Hounds are generally very docile dogs. Our first one, she was a sweetheart, but pretty lazy. You know, you would try to take her for a walk, she'd just plop down on the ground and she'd be done.
Oh, one of those. Yep. You had drag her.
Yep. And then our second Basset Hound, or at least my second Basset Hound, we got when I was in kindergarten. Sadie, correct. Very good. And she was pretty high strung, kind of a moody dog sometimes. As she got older, she became a little bit more cuddly. And now my parents' current dog, Prudy, or Prudence, comes from the Beatles song.
Bites all my shit.
What?
Prudence, the current dog, bites all my shit.
Yep. Yep. She's a people pleaser. She always wants to be with you. She always wants to play. She always tries to I don't know if it's a mistake or not, but when we got her when she was really little, and so I would lay on my parents' couch and let her sleep on my chest. Well, now she weighs over 50 pounds.
Oh, right. And still wants to do that.
And she still does. So
I can't breathe.
You're pinned down. It's a good core exercise. But yeah, that's interesting though. I mean, it makes sense, I guess, conlang with animals. That makes sense. Yeah.
And I would imagine that scent-based could also work with dogs as well. I mean, you could also add sound forms like sound and taste and other things in there. But scent is obviously a very huge part of, it's way stronger than, say, animals, for example, talking or sight abilities.
Right.
So I bet you could include, there could be some conlang for dogs involving scent. But it probably would not be as sophisticated as it is for ants, because I'm sure, I don't know much about ants, but I'm sure they essentially have no sight and are
it's mostly scent-based.
More off at a scent and maybe sound and vibrations and stuff like that. So.
Well, yeah.
Shout out to that guy too. That sounds so complex.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, the thing with con languages is you have to think a little bit outside of the box, and I think he or she was definitely doing that.
Yeah.
Well, Jared, I think we should move on to our song of the pod, which is, we try to think of songs that are from other countries, since you and I are both American. And this one,
and apropos to our topic, if we can, as well.
Yes, and this one was very apropos. It is called "The Passing of the Elves," or I'm going to try to say it. I apologize to all my Elvish speakers out there for butchering this.
Say the actual title of it.
"The Passing of the Elves" is the English title, and it's Elbereth Gilthoniel. I'm not sure if I said it right, but
have you heard that before? Do they ever say that title or that phrase in the movie?
They probably did.
You know, something that I also wanted to look into, which I didn't even have enough time, what I kind of wish I did, was what it's like for an actor to have to learn a conlang. Because actors, for the most part, have no longer than a couple months. It's not like they have years to... Movies are rarely filmed for years.
Right.
These movies usually are done in, say, 6 months, 8 months, something like that, I would assume. It's probably... I would imagine. I don't know. But I imagine 6 to 10 months is probably the average time for a movie to be made.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, it would just be intensive study and probably
or is it learning the language, or is it just learning the sounds to be able to say it?
Learning the sounds and the lines, I would say.
But if you're a good actor and you're really immersing yourself and really trying to method act, then you'd think you'd want to know the language and actually know it, so it feels more natural.
Right. But at the same time, unless you're working with an expert, if you're just trying to speak the language
That's
with your
true.
fellow
You
actors,
can't-
they won't correct you and they won't know
It's
when you
impossible
make
to
mistakes.
do that without hearing the actual
Right.
pronunciation.
Exactly. But
the linguist is probably there on set. You know,
I would imagine so.
like these James Cameron movies have a big enough budget for this professor
Right.
to hang around in a trailer.
Right. But yeah, so what are your thoughts, Jared, on the passing of the elves?
Well,
It comes from Lord of the Rings, obviously.
once again, you're more familiar with Lord of the Rings than I am. Can you explain the scene that this song would present itself? Or is it recurring?
I'm trying to remember. I think it's either when one of the characters who is Elvish either passes away or leaves.
Okay, well, I'm glad you said that, because the reason why I initially asked that is because my first impression of the song was very ominous.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was in prep before we started recording. I was running around doing a bunch of stuff, waiting for this package to show up for my Studio A, getting prepared for the pod. And I listened to the song, and it was almost as if it got me in a trance, where I just sat down and I was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, it has a very... I actually find it peaceful and not so ominous.
It is very peaceful, but I find it ominous, but it doesn't scare me.
Okay.
But it has like a very... Like, it doesn't give you a lighthearted feeling, does it?
No, it's heavy.
Right. It's not ominous in the sense where I'm like, this makes me uncomfortable.
Right.
But it's ominous in the sense where it's like, it's clearly used in, it's not used in like a frolicking through to the ring.
Right.
It's more used in, it's like, there's fire around us. It's a scary situation.
Right. Yeah, the tempo of the song is very slow. I should also mention the conlang in the song is Sindarin. It has English subtitles. We'll be posting that video when this episode drops.
Yeah.
And the soundtrack is by a gentleman named Howard Shore. The poem was originally written by Tolkien, and the main singer is Vanita Moraes.
So Howard Shore,
Who dat?
he was just the one that composed it?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. But the author, J.R.R. Tolkien, he actually wrote the poem,
Yeah.
which was turned into a song by that
And
guy.
it's Elbereth Gilthonia.
There you go. Did you listen
I'm listening
to it?
to it right now, yeah.
Yeah, of course you did. Yeah,
Yeah.
I knew it.
But see, like, I love the lines of it. It's very simple. We still remember we who dwell. And it actually sounds good in English. Like,
It kind of sounds like it's a song you'd hear in a very traditional Christian church.
yep. Uh-huh.
Like a cathedral of some sorts. It's not like, it's like where if you go to a very old school church,
Right.
I can imagine a big organ
Right.
and this just being sang from a hymnal.
So
that's the vibe you get
Let
from it.
let me read some
I
of the
get from it.
words. So, "O Queen beyond the western seas" is one of the first lines in the song. Then they say, "O light to us that wander there." I'm listening to it, so one moment here.
Oh.
And then they say, "Amid
By the
the
way, once
world
again-
of woven trees." So yeah, it's very visual.
Right.
It sets a scene. It's really cool. It will push you in trance, though. So just a warning.
Yeah,
to all of our
it
listeners
definitely
out there.
caught my attention. But I mean, that's something if I'm listening to a song, I want it to catch my attention, so I'm not complaining.
Right. And
Especially for a song that is obviously very far out of something I'd listen to on just an average day in my headphones, for it to catch my attention that much and me to be like, let me stop and listen to this rather than run around and listen to it.
Right.
It caught my attention very much.
Yeah,
shout out to J.R.R. Tolkien.
yeah, absolutely. And also Howard Shore and Vanita Moraes. So yes, so we'll have that song out for all of you wonderful people to give a listen on our YouTube channel and on our Twitter. I need to also start posting these on Facebook, get my game up a little more.
As I said, I believe 3 or 4 episodes ago, just follow us on Twitter.
Right, exactly. So now we'll move on, though, and talk about not a conlang, but a real language, which is Czech. As most of our listeners know, I'm currently living in the Czech Republic, trying my best to learn Czech. And I have a very important word, Jared, that I have heard hundreds of times, I would estimate, since I've been here. And the word is všechno. Do you have any guesses?
I'm going to guess that it's similar to this. You betcha.
Nope. Not at all.
Oh man,
Vyshechno
it felt like
is,
it seemed like all's good is what the sense I got.
No, so Vyshechno is if you go order food, they'll say Vyshechno. Or if you go to the grocery store and you're at the cash register, the cashier might ask you Vyshechno.
Credit?
Is that all? Is that everything?
Oh, ooh, that's a very useful one.
Yeah.
Could you use that like when you're just in normal conversation?
I mean, I think it literally just
Like
means
if you're-
all.
If one of your students is mouthing off to you, could you be like Vyshechno?
Maybe.
Or are we
maybe.
gonna keep this going?
I don't know if that would work. I don't know. I try
Easy.
I
Slipping on gator
Right.
piss.
I try to keep my class completely in English, although it's natural.
It's
for
never
the
that
students to speak
aggressive.
Czech. Yeah, right. What I've been doing lately is when my students start talking, I'll just stop talking and wait.
Oh yeah, I remember that technique.
You know, because I don't want to lose my voice by talking over them. So I
You're
just
not
usually
one
wait.
to yell anyway. I don't think I've ever heard you raise your voice.
I'm not a big yeller.
Yeah.
Definitely not. But yeah, well, Jared, unfortunately, I tried to find some good conlang jokes. I couldn't find any.
Shocking that there's not a lot of humor in the conlang community.
Well, some of them were, but they were like puns, and I didn't get the puns, and I'm assuming
because
most
they
of
were
our
like
listeners,
using conlangs.
right? And so I'm assuming most of our listeners wouldn't get them. But I do have a pun for you today because puns are always great. So here we go. My
Okay.
one and only joke of the pod today. Why did the picture end up in jail?
Oh, I know the answer.
Give it to me.
Because it was framed.
There you go. That's right. Very good. Because it was framed. Nice little pun. I love puns. What are your thoughts on puns, Jared?
I always enjoy an unexpected pun.
Okay.
Like, for example, when I did that live long and prosper joke, not joke, but when I said live long and prosper, I didn't really expect that to be a Star Trek line, you know, as we're talking about Klingon.
Right.
But I do like a pun like that where it's like, oh, but it is sometimes people can try to over pun things. It's like, all right, relax. It's like,
Right.
like it's usually more funny to me when someone says like pun not intended and you didn't realize it was going to be a pun.
Right.
But puns are fun. I'm not against puns.
They're a good time.
Puns are fun.
They definitely are. That's for sure. Well, Jared, it has come to that time to leave our listeners with a quote. I'm going to try my best to speak some Elvish to end our pod today.
Oh, yes.
And I will give the English translation afterwards and also the context of the quote. But here we go. Actually, one moment here. Let me give it one more quick listen to make sure I don't completely butcher it.
So, well,
Okay.
never mind. He's about to do it.
Okay, here we go. A erukin udailo ifailas ahin an uba tanantha lefailas, which means
It almost
yeah.
kind of sounds like it has a mix of like European and Arabic in it.
Mm-hmm. I think this one would be the one that's based off of Welsh, Sindarin. I think it's
Okay.
Sindarin, but I could be wrong. And the quote is, "Show them no mercy, for you shall receive none." Literally, O children of Eru, don't show the mercy to them, for nobody will show you mercy.
And where is this from?
This is
Where'd you
from
get
Lord
this
of the
from?
Rings. It is from, let's see here. I don't remember which
Oh,
film.
is Aragorn in the quote you said Aragorn?
Yes.
So Aragorn said it?
Yes.
Who dat? So I was thinking when it was Aragorn that isn't there a book called Aragorn about like a dragon or something like
Yeah,
that?
and I have no idea if that's related at all whatsoever.
Okay. I was like, I wonder if they use I thought maybe they happened to use Elvish that they got the permission to use from Tolkien or something, but I don't think that's what happened. So, can you put some context on this quote for me?
Yes. So it's before a battle. It is in the battle, or it is in the Two Towers film. It's in the Two Towers film, and it's right before a battle, the Battle of Helm's Deep. So they're fighting the Uruk-hai.
Of course.
Yes, and so yeah. So that's really the context. But I wanted to pick
For
this.
someone that's read the book, you really have nothing to say about this.
Dude, I read the books years ago, like a long.
And also, how many
time ago.
pages did you read? All of them,
Yeah.
like the entire trilogy?
Yeah.
What is that? Over 1,000 pages?
Probably, I would assume so.
All right,
Yeah,
I'll
But
cut you a break
But it's
then.
been so long that But I wanted to give this quote because I want our listeners to also not show people mercy if they will not receive any mercy.
I agree. It's
a good quote.
Don't take no shit is what we'd say in English.
That's right. That's right. So please, if you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out on iTunes or Stitcher. We would love to hear a review from you. Also, check out our Twitter page, Untranslatable1. Take a look at our Instagram. We have a lot of different clips and photos from our travels and our little shenanigans. And if you have any conlang words or phrases you would like, please send them our way at untranslatablepodcast@gmail.com. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we will talk to you next time.